Yeah, well, Prof here. I thought I'd get you an update. We got this guy back up and running. For those that didn't see it, the drive has failed in here. Even though it's fine on smart data, it corrupted to the point. Oh, you're gonna have to turn that. That a check disk. Use my preferred stubby LTT. If you guys are wondering which LTT screwdriver you should get, the stubby is the GOAT. And a lot of people are like, oh, the big one, obviously. No. If anything's super unique, it's this guy. So, we're going to pop this open. And we're going to make use of that NVMe, that secondary NVMe slot. This guy is the guy that failed. The 970 Evo Plus. I don't know if you can tell, but it's a banana. If I go ultra wide, if that'll make it look more banana-y. But it's kinked right there. And you know where that is, even on the new one? Right over the Wi-Fi chip. See that right there? So I wonder if the heat put off by that guy is what bananaed this. And it was worse when I took it out, I'll admit that. I did kind of just take it and, very gently bent it back the other way. But, let me get this guy in here. We sure can, temporarily. So there's a trick for you if you have a NUC 14. Probably a NUC 15 as well, and you need to have a full 2280 in there, because what I'm going to do is image this guy to the new one. We aren't explaining why, and why the thing was such a big process. So that drive failed, I think, from that, it was in the old one, the NUC 10, but the Wi-Fi chip was in the same spot. That caused this to basically make a nice banana shape, which then might have, I don't know if that's causing issues with the solder joints, creating just errors that the drive couldn't correct for. So then I ran a check disk. Turns out the entire Windows folder was corrupt and put into a check disk folder. So then once the drive was fixed and it tried to be booted, it couldn't boot back up, because none of the literally, when people joke about deleting your System 32, that's literally what happened here. However, because most of those files were fine, like when check disk recovered them, however, it doesn't put them back. It puts it in like a .chk folder. Luckily, it was all one directory. Sadly, that one directory was the Windows directory. Womp womp, right? But by putting those files back, I was able to get Windows to boot again off of here. Now I don't trust that drive anymore, because it should have never corrupted far enough to need that to happen, right? So, and that's a 500 gig drive. We were a good bit full on that as well. So we're going 990 Pro, 1 terabyte, because the NUC 14 can do PCIe Gen 4. That's an adapter kit. This is an adapter kit. And then the other thing that's going to happen is in here is an 860 Evo. that 860 Evo is it's full. So the next issue I ran into, as in why repair this? Well, it turns out that none of the drives, I noticed this, they didn't have a trim. Like, Windows had not trimmed them in 127 days. File history, which is what's backing up to here, also had not run. The reason why it had not run is the drive is full. Because that's a 500 gig drive, that's a 1 terabyte. Normally a 2X is fine, but we apparently didn't get the alert about it being full. So, and since SATA SSDs are actually more costly, or as costly, but it's either the same or more actually now to get a SATA drive. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy a SATA drive unless you have to for your older system. We ended up going with this Rocket Q4. I trust Sabrent. They're probably my number 2 or 3. Right after Samsung is probably where I'd go to Sabrent. Though this does a 2242 SSD, most of the 2242s are older because almost everything has now switched to the 2230s. And I trust this one. I have run plenty of these already. I have a 1 terabyte, the 1 terabyte version of that in here. There you go. And this is, though it's slower because it's a Q4, that's QLC, this is TLC, it's the same drive. And it's PCIe Gen 4. This should have had a coupon. I think they normally go for 200. It was down to 160, which put it right in line with the other, like 2 terabyte 2230 drives that are actually, here's the other thing. The Sabrents, unlike a lot of other 2230 drives, actually have caches on them. They have DRAM caches. So most of the brands will actually just have a single chip that has, it's hard to tell here, but there's actually a dedicated controller. Then there's the NAND chip, and then there's a DRAM chip right there. And most of these 2230s are actually single chip. Like if you look at what's formerly Toshiba Kioxia, they make a big deal about having basically all that. It's DRAM-less, and then a controller built right into the NAND flash. If you want low power, that's the way to go. That's an i5 or a Core 5 or whatever it is now, Ultra 5. So we're not too concerned about that. I'd rather go for the more reliability and performance, and I trust Sabrent. I was running them in my server for years, the first iteration. Then I had to upgrade the board because it had X470, which is only PCIe Gen 4. Then it ended up with an X570 when the X470 board took a shit. So then it got... I think 980 Pros, because my desktops all got upgraded from 1 terabyte 980 Pros to 2 terabyte 990 Pros. Then I had 2 extra 980 Pro 1 terabytes to throw in there. So I still have some Gen 3 Sabrents that are 5 years. They lasted in a server as the cache drives. So, good drives. Sadly, Samsung does not make a 2230 that is comparable to Sabrent's offerings. I think they have some OEM ones, but usually you're going to look in the realm of Kioxia or WD, which I really wouldn't be doing that. Micron has some offerings as well. What's weird is that Micron has offerings as well as Crucial. Micron's like the OEM for the NAND, and then Crucial's their brand name, but I guess Micron does sell OEM drives under Micron directly to like your Dells, your HPs, all that sort of stuff. So what's going to happen is this 990 Pro is going to go in the slot that it's supposed to be. The 970 Pro is going to hang out and vibe like that for now because it does slot in properly. We're going to take this drive, which even though it says Windows 10 on it, I have yet to relabel it. This is actually Windows 11. I just got the new Acronis 2025 for this project. Because we are going to have to image Windows 11, and my Lovely. That might be new. I love finding stains on my floor. Looks like vomit. We're going to need to image this, and we got it on Windows 11. Sadly, we're going to have to get a new image as well for those of you that are like, oh, but like this had Windows before. Yep, so that was a Windows 7 key that had been upgraded for free to Windows 10. The issue there is that that has ended. The free upgrades have ended, right? Had we stuck with the same hardware, same drive, same, like not the NUC 14, but the NUC 10, etc., it would have been fine, right? But we didn't, right? So even if we would have switched this, that Windows would not have reactivated. Now, sometimes you can contact Microsoft and let them know, like, hey, my hardware died, I had to swap it out because of hardware failure, and then they will reactivate it for you. However, with this, we have some weird voodoo with BitLocker that was actually tied to an older Microsoft account of somebody's that did use this system or did license the system in the past that is not involved anymore. It's just far easier to not fuck with it, and we just ended up buying a new license. And the reason why this would have fully deactivated and not... Microsoft probably wouldn't even transfer it at this point is because, yes, we swapped the computer and we had the old drive, but now we're having to swap the drive as well. And unless you have a retail license at that point, the OEM one will not transfer. Nothing you do will transfer. And if you're running a business, I do recommend buying actual licenses. You can buy the gray market ones, but Microsoft also, as part of the license agreement, does have the ability to come in and audit your hardware and software and how it's implemented and stuff. And if they find out that you're running fake keys, you're in for a nice hefty fine and a lawsuit. Yeah. I have known small businesses or say local MSPs and heard of them where, yep, they charge you want to say like they charge the local small business companies full price, but then they themselves use those gray market keys so you can get like, Windows Server for a fraction of the cost, etc. And it turns out like they're not running real licenses effectively. Yeah, so I'm gonna pop this guy back in. We have our new Acronis media here. I made a Windows 11 one, I made a Linux one, both of those UEFI, and then I made a 32-bit Windows 7 one for those really old systems, or like on this you'd have to enable CSM, or like BIOS mode, right? Not UEFI mode. And sometimes you just need that. So I actually have 3 drives in here. Now, you guys may not need that many. I've got Win 7 BIOS. I just make that 32-bit because that'll cover, it doesn't really affect me being 32-bit. But a lot of times, if something's still having to run Windows 7, there's a good chance it's because it needs to run, it's 32-bit. Then we got Linux UEFI. Often, even if it's Windows install, I have to revert to this, turn Secure Boot off and revert to that. There's just some weirdness. Like when this was BitLockered, and I didn't know it was. Like BitLocker was enabled on the drives, and I was able to get the recovery keys and unlock it. The Windows one just spat in my face. The Linux one told me BitLocker was on, and that's why I couldn't copy it. Now, this was not on the 2025 version. This was on the 2020 version, which is exactly why I had to buy a new one, because the 2021 does not support Windows 11. And that's where we're going as part of this, or already went as part of this. And then my plan is, because the old system had drive issues with the same drive configuration, or very similar, but the box died, like I think pretty sure it fried. I am going to suggest, once all this is sorted out, because I'll actually have a process in place that's much more, and the other one's already fixed, right? Like software-wise, so I should just have to clone it and run the check disk that is recommended after imaging a system, and we're done. Much easier. That'll be done within basically however long it just takes to image. And if we're going NVMe to NVMe, and full SATA speed to NVMe, that should just be, damn fast. I mean, I was backing up 500 gigs or a terabyte in 18 minutes when I was going to even the T7 external SSD there, or my made one that I made out of shards here with this QLC Sabrent. This one does 2 gigabit a second. Doing backups with external SSDs has changed the game. Do be aware that your enclosure more than likely is going to limit your drive speed more than anything else. And that literally all you're going to do to the drives is murder them, because you're literally just taking the entirety of our drives and dumping it on them. As long as you understand that, it's fine. You want a quality, reliable drive, but it does not have to be the fastest for backing up, because like I said, if you're not doing it like I am, where I have 2 slots and I can actually throw it inside the system, more than likely it's your enclosure that's going to limit you, unless you're spending the big bucks for that. Getting a 20 gigabit one, not that hard to do nowadays. The Samsung T9 out of the box. Otherwise, too, from my experience, if you want the most compatible thing that you can even use on your phone or directly on a camera, the Samsung portable drives are the way to go. You will never match them by making your own custom drive. And retail wise, not on sale, yes, they might be quite a bit cheaper, but as long as you don't buy them right on launch, they'll get heavily discounted in no time. Just watch for a sale. The number of T5s that I have used over the years, like T3s and T5s, T7s less so. That's when they went to NVMe, and now I'd recommend a T9 any day of the week, because it automatically comes as the ruggedized version. I think they realized with the T7 that the rugged one that came out later sold really, really well. My rugged one actually never got used all that much, because by the time I was holding out to build my new desktop to switch to that drive, and by the time that happened, I went from a 2 terabyte was it T7 Shield. Then I got the 4 terabyte 990 Pro on my desktop, and I got a 4 terabyte T9. So the T7 Shield I have, as you saw, it was a normal T7 over here too. It somehow just keeps evading being used. But yeah, questions, comments, throw them down below. We're going full NVMe. We could have saved the money on this and not gotten the tall NUC, because we're not even going to be using the SATA cable anymore. There are other uses you can use that expansion for, as there are other headers. You do have to buy the other adapters, though, to the other headers on the board there. I think at one point there might have even been a U.2 way where you convert this other M.2 to a U.2 that you could put in here. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with these. Think of it as a really big x86 Raspberry Pi. It's kind of or instead of an all-in-one, you just take one of those, slap it on the back of a monitor. And especially now that they have monitors that connect with one port, are powered off of the port, like this is Thunderbolt, it could power the monitor. All you have to do is power the NUC, and you got one cable going in, you got a touch screen, you got, etc. So, yeah, any questions, comments down below on this fix or why we're upgrading it, I'll gladly answer them. Sadly, this is how some of it goes, but I was able, dude, I'm so pumped that I was able to get Windows back working on here once I found out why it had stopped. That 970 Evo Plus, I'll have to see if I can still warranty it. Samsung's usually pretty good about it. This one I'll have to tell them too, this is because the Smart is still fine on that, but I'll have to explain to them that, hey, the OS corrupted. Now, if they find out it's a banana, they may not warranty it. But when was this made? 2020. Makes sense. That's when I did the NUC 10s. So it's 2025. This probably has a 5-year warranty, 6, so this might be right outside of warranty. That's another thing to always consider when you're doing stuff for businesses. Sometimes you're better off replacing it before it goes out of warranty, because a lot of these things are built to last when they're actually used regularly. They're built to last until that date, and it's about it, you know, especially with drives. Now, like I said, the smart health on that looks fine. The banana shape, that has gotten a little bit better since I kind of was probably actually the cause of the corruption. So we're going to get a speed upgrade, go into a Gen 4 drive, and that's a banger. The 990 Pro basically maxes out Gen 4. And terabyte, we'll get that. I mean, not that they need direct storage for gaming, but we're going to hit that requirement. And then you always want at least double your main drive, because with this you always want the ability, like a backup. The whole point of backup is to have more than one version, right? So like if you delete something or you edit something in some way, you can go back to the previous version of the file. So you always want, at a minimum, double your whatever drive you're backing up in backup drive. Double. I don't even know if they make 2230s and 4 terabyte. I'm pretty sure they cap right now at 2 terabyte. So had we needed to go the other way, we would have had to gone with a 2 terabyte one of these, like this guy right here, and a 4 terabyte one of these, which would have been hella expensive. But that would have been the other option. The reason why I went the option that I did is the 990 Pro is going to be the much more performant drive, like probably the most performant drive we could get in there, and we don't need as much performance for the backup drive. Could always get, you can get 4 terabyte SATA SSDs, but they actually cost more than the 4 terabyte NVMe's. Maybe not a 990 Pro, but if we go into the QLC realm, like say we head over to Sabrent and we get a 4 terabyte or even an 8 terabyte Rocket Q4, but the normal 2280 size, often those are the same or cheaper price, a lot of times cheaper than the SATA, because you don't need the SATA controller, you don't need the metal box, you don't need the connector, you don't need, there's a lot less to these. Like finally, for like, it always used to be a 500 gig or a 1 terabyte hard drive was what you'd find in the cheapest devices. Now these NVMe's have finally gotten cheap enough where we didn't see it too much with the 256s, but the 1 terabytes were they're not 1 terabytes, so 500 gigs. It was cheaper for them to huck in like some cashless 500 gig NVMe, like Gen 3 and actually Gen 4, especially once they added the thing with Gen 4 where you can use your system memory as the DRAM cache, or to stand in for the DRAM cache on the actual drive itself. Then performance skyrocketed. I forget what the terminology for that is, but yeah, so like, because you have less and less components on the actual drive. Like, I don't think we ever saw those laptop drives get ever under like $35 roughly, whereas you can pick up like a 500 gigabyte SSD for like $17 if you don't mind something that's, dirt cheap. When hit under load, might it be as slow or even slower than a hard drive? Yeah, quite potentially actually, because especially with the cashless models that don't have that part that can use the system memory, they get balls slow. But in general use, for the average person, it's still going to be faster than a hard drive. I would probably spend a little bit more, and if you find that drive in your system, I think I've made videos in the past about getting like a really budget laptop and how, putting a couple bucks into it, really, like doubling the RAM, getting yourself a proper cached NVMe, and sticking yourself a proper Intel Wi-Fi card in there, that'll make that cheap as chips laptop feel like it's like double, triple, quadruple the amount of money, because those are the premium components. Having enough RAM, having a quality SSD and having a quality Wi-Fi card, like that's actually what you're utilizing when your average person is using the computer. And it makes a noticeable difference. So I'm gonna get this going and we'll follow up in a bit.